Welcome back, everybody. This is Large Man Abroad. Welcome to the office. It has been a tumultuous, intense weekend as we've seen Iran and Israel firing rockets and missiles back and forth at each other, while at the same time in America, we have massive protests going on with No King's Day, coinciding with the Flag Day celebration / birthday party of President Donald Trump. Let's get into it.
It was a day of defiance against Donald Trump. Millions of Americans rallying across the country in a series of protests organisers hoped would be free of violence. They weren't. And in the midst of all that violence on another scale, a Democrat politician gunned down in her own home. Police tonight still searching for the assassin.
Across the states, the people united against their president.
Trump must go now!
This was meant to be a day of peaceful protest, but it was quickly hijacked by violence in the streets of Salt Lake City.
Oh my God, that's a gun.
A shooter unleashes. One person left critically injured before police apprehended the suspect. Further arrests in Virginia and San Francisco after cars were deliberately driven into crowds. This movement, labelled No Kings, 2,000 protests in all 50 states.
I think there's a big effort to really make these protests look like riots, and of course you do have those elements there. I was at the protest in Akron yesterday, if you saw that on the live stream, and we even had some of that there. I mean, listen, you have Antifa, they're going to be there. I mean, you have counter protesters, they're going to show up. Now in Akron, we didn't actually have any counter protesters at all, which was a bit of a surprise because Akron is surrounded by MAGA country. It really is. But although like one or two people who supported Donald Trump really did drive through, with their flags, for the most part, it's a really quiet, peaceful crowd. What surprised me the most, honestly, because I mean, you have to compare what you're seeing in the live stream from yesterday to what you see in the media. The media shows nothing but foreign flags being flown by protesters, but yesterday is nothing but American flags. I did see a Palestinian flag, but I mean, you're going to get that, obviously, because Gaza's been absolutely destroyed. But yeah, just American flags everywhere. I actually think that over the past 10 years, we've seen the left really move to be fairly unpatriotic, for acceptable reasons, honestly. But the American flag isn't something that you necessarily saw at a lot of protests. But now, yesterday, it almost looked like a Memorial Day event or 4th of July event. I mean, there's American flags everywhere.
Calling for the protection of America's democracy. These people want Donald Trump dethroned, accusing the president of overreaching the powers of his office and acting like a monarch rather than an elected politician.
When the revolution occurs and all these fascists, all the Trump supporters, they will be held accountable.
On its 8th straight day of protests, Los Angeles is still a powder keg.
Hey, let's go, leave the area! You got shields behind you, move!
Demonstrations descending into chaos, the public throwing projectiles, police more than prepared to use force. Officers charging on horseback.
I understand they'll grab the reins, and I understand that even if an old guy, if he takes the reins and pulls it, it's gonna drive that horse crazy. But it doesn't ever feel good to see a senior citizen getting whacked with the police baton. It's always gonna make me feel a certain way.
And brandishing batons, pushing away the crowds.
Every time those horses have moved in, you can see those crowds disperse. So this is what's happening. It is an effective way to get rid of the demonstrators here.
Protesters doing what they can to protect themselves.
They shot me like little rats, though, on the side while I'm holding my shield up. But it's blocked every single shot that those people have got. I kicked the tear gas, it's blocked the paintballs.
But plenty of shots hit their mark.
They got me behind the ear, got me in the hip, the thigh, in the chest.
In case you didn't know, non-lethals can kill you. There's a reason why they don't use beanbag rounds anymore, because if you get hit in the chest with that, it stop your heart, or it can crack your skull, cause internal bleeding, all this stuff. So they use the rubber bullets now, but it's the exact same thing. Not as dangerous, no, but it can end you. It really can. And I remember when we were doing our training with non-lethals in the Marine Corps, they said, if you did shoot somebody in the face, if you did shoot somebody in the groin in a vital area, you'd be brought up on charges. So it's Are we going to see that happen? Absolutely not. But I think that's something that should be the case. Because I know that we've already seen a lot of videos, like the one with the reporter where she just got, I mean, the officer just turned and popped her. So are there going to be any kind of consequences? Like I said, no. We're becoming more of a police state, and it's not a good thing. And I think a lot of people that watch this, listen, if you're on the right, you watch this, you like it. You know, I used to be on the right. Transparency. I used to be on the right. And you like watching your opponents get smashed up. You know, I think it's just kind of human nature. It's something that we've wanted in civilization for a long time. We like seeing our enemies get destroyed. I mean, the right, they're going to see this and they're going to celebrate. Just like if there's a mass protest being done by the far right and the police smashed them up, which they wouldn't, the left would be celebrating as well. So is it hypocrisy? Yeah, maybe. But I think it's just kind of like a shitty aspect of human nature that we all just kind of have to deal with and kind of try to live together. But
All right, you can see tear gas now being deployed on these protesters. Everybody has just been sent an emergency alert on their phones to clear the area, and that is exactly what the LAPD is attempting to do right now. But as you can see, a lot of these protesters, they're staying here in defiance.
All risking arrest. By nightfall, they were locked out, the city under curfew. There were flare-ups in Philadelphia and clashes in Chicago. Police declared a riot in Portland after a march turned ugly. And here in Minnesota, thousands defied a warning from officials not to attend this rally. This is why.
My good friend and colleague, Speaker Melissa Hortman, and her husband Mark were shot and killed early this morning in what appears to be a politically motivated assassination.
Police say the gunman posed as one of their...
It is fascinating, a lot of the information that's been getting out there right now about the person who was involved in the events of that morning. And there's a lot of disinformation out there right now. A lot of people on the right saying that it was an operative of the left, someone of the far left, and a lot of people on the left saying that it was somebody who worked for the RNC, worked for the GOP. But either way, they're not saying that this is like a lone suspect. You know, there's going to be so many conspiracy theories with this. It's really going to blow up into something pretty big. But it's not a good look for it to happen on this day specifically. But with all these events that are happening, I don't ever throw coincidence in there. Everything's symbolic. Everything has meaning. And although we like to think that our politicians are idiots, they're not. You know, they're very smart people. They wouldn't have gotten to where they are if they weren't smart people. They may make gaffes, and maybe they're not the best public speakers, but no, these are very smart, calculating people, and you should never underestimate them. Never just think that they're idiots and that you're smarter than they are. These are shrewd people. You have to be very careful.
It appears that he donned a mask and an officer's uniform before opening fire at their front door. Another Democratic Senator, John Hoffman, and his wife were also shot multiple times at their home, but survived. An enormous manhunt is now underway. The suspect, 57-year-old Vance Bolter. A hit list was allegedly found in his car with nearly 70 names on it. Authorities also finding flyers in the vehicle promoting the No Kings protests. Within hours, a warning in Texas. Lawmakers urged to avoid the evening rally at the state capitol due to credible threats to their life. This is Trump's America, and today it was anarchy. In Los Angeles, Reed Butler, 9 News.
Well, from protests to a parade, celebrations on the streets of Washington, D.C. as President Trump watched over the country's biggest military display in decades, and it just so happened to be his birthday.
You know, you keep seeing videos and pictures of the event, and I wasn't there. I wanted to be there. But you look at the pictures that are there, and it just looked like no one really showed up. I mean, you're going to have a lot of people showing up there for the parade, yeah, but I mean, the actual field, like before where the president was, it's just not really anyone there. Like I said, I don't know if that's just like propaganda by the left or if it's honest, because I mean, they always, it's the same thing with the inauguration pictures. You know, they're always changing the perspective of things to really make it look one way or the other. Honestly, the people are just kind of sick of being lied to. If you can just be honest with us, you know, Because it's either that or like all his support, or they're just people on the internet and on the computer, and they're not actually going to show up. I would have thought with as massive as his rallies have been historically, this would have been massive. There would have been 1 million people show up. But I feel like there's more protesters who showed up for the No King's Day protest in DC than there were actual Trump supporters from the entire nation who showed up in DC.
World's mightiest military on the streets of Washington, D.C. America flexing its muscle in the nation's capital. A moment marking the 250th anniversary of the US Army on the birthday of its Commander-in-Chief. Donald Trump turned 79 today, and the President presided over a show. From a purpose-built viewing platform, Trump watched as close to 7,000 soldiers marched through the Capitol, a display of intense patriotism featuring millions of dollars in military hardware.
We're the hottest country in the world right now.
The US President has long eyed off a parade like this. During his first term in office, top officials shut down the idea. Today came the opportunity for a show in honour of the Army's anniversary, and it came with a hefty price tag, around $70 million.
Every other country celebrates their victories. It's about time America did too.
This is the largest display of US military might in more than 30 years. Tonight, tanks.
You know, I am personally torn about the military parade. If you've not seen this channel before, I'm a veteran of the US military. I am a Marine. I love a little bit of pageantry. I love weapons. I love tech. I was an artilleryman, and you know, honestly, I grew up on bases, right? Like, I love this kind of stuff. I was in my first tank when I was 6 years old. I held my first hand grenade when I was like 8. But military parades are something that I've known about my entire life. I've seen a ton of them. You know, I've been in them myself, and you know, I do enjoy them. But like I said, timing is everything, and none of these things are coincidence. So, you know, with everything that's been going on in California, everything that's been going on with these protests, to have this now, it just seems wrong. It does seem like another agenda is being pushed. And like I said, everyone feels like it has more to do with the birthday than it actually does Flag Day. Because why not do this on any other holiday? Veterans Day, Memorial Day, the 4th of July. You know, why Flag Day? Like I said, we all know why. It's because it's Trump's birthday. He wanted a big birthday party. I think it's amazing that no one really showed up. But like I said, I do love this kind of stuff. I love the old uniforms. You know, I think if you're a gamer, and a lot of you who watch this are old, so I know you're not gamers, that's fine. But I'm a big Call of Duty World at War guy, right? Like, I'm a big history guy, and I love seeing the old uniforms out there. Especially if you're like me and in your family, you have a lot of family members who fought in these wars throughout generations. You have pictures of them in those uniforms. It's nice to see it alive again. But like I said, it's just the context of this thing that, you know, I have a lot of problems with, I think. And I think a lot of people do. Especially if we're talking about kind of the wars of the past, before the corporate wars really began. People do take a lot of pride in those. You know, people do take a lot of pride in our involvement in World War II. Everyone in the country, whether you're on the right or the left, everyone does. Of course, it's something to celebrate. But the question is this who we are? There's something about the humble modesty of the US military and kind of denying the ostentatious nature of empire in the pageantry that I think has really spoken about the character of America's military more than anything else. It's all about tradition. It's all about being quiet while carrying a big stick. That's US policy, really, what it's always been known to be. This whole big, in your face, we're the hottest thing right now, that's not us. That's a creation of modernity, but that's not us. That's not who we are as Americans, I don't believe. But maybe I'm wrong, you know? I'm probably wrong.
Rolling down Constitution Avenue here in Washington, D.C. It's a spectacle, sending a message.
America's enemies have learned that If you threaten the American people, our soldiers are coming for you.
We have a perfect military, and that's all it shows. Trump's not trying to show anything that he's king.
It's a once-in-a-lifetime event.
I'm hoping that it's more unitive than it is, tearing us apart.
We just need to come together, and this has just been a great celebration of the Army. And in turn, you can make it a celebration of the United States of America.
I think it's insane. I think it's insane that we're going to talk about unity and bringing people together all at the same time. We are just ripping everybody apart. Trump said last week that anyone who showed up to protest, they hate America, right? They're the enemies. So I'm not an enemy, and I went to a protest. And I just completely disagree with that. And most people who were there's a lot of veterans there, right? There's a World War II veteran at the protest yesterday. Is he an enemy of America? He probably fought the Nazis. No, but this idea of you have to be on our side, right? You have to understand our America, right? It has to be our America or you're not American. That's what's got us to where we are today. Because the thing is, we're talking about American military heritage in this, and that goes way beyond the point where the vast majority of people who are here at this protest or sitting right now in the seat of the president before their family was even here. Like my family was here. And my family's been here since the 1600s. And I'm not going to say that somebody who got here in the early 1900s or the 1950s isn't American, because that's not how America works. But I mean, this is from the same guy who played Fortunate Son at one of his rallies, but he was one of the fortunate, he was literally the person being sang about in that song. So there's a lack of self-awareness that doesn't just hit him, but hits all people, but especially that side right now, I feel like.
Joining us, Donald Trump has been wanting some kind of military parade even during his first term.
Sure, that's right.
He's explained a little.
I don't know, let's take a break for a minute. Hey, if you're still here at this point, like and subscribe. It really helps the channel as we're trying to grow here. If you have any suggestions or any comments about what we just saw, just throw in the comments section. If you want to get a hold of me directly, just throw a super chat or something in there. The best way to get me directly, or you can always become a member. Just go to the homepage and hit join. It's right there.
A little bit why, but talk more about that.
Yeah, I mean, Melissa, military parades are part of American history, to be honest. They've happened before. It's just that they've become less frequent in recent decades. And there are a number of reasons for that. They usually follow military victories, and there have been fewer clear-cut military victories since the end of World War II, the Persian Gulf obviously being one of the differences there. Seemingly a clear-cut victory. Another reason is that, honestly, in the modern era, it's been dictatorial governments, totalitarian governments who have really been the ones to carry out these kinds of parades. And that's been very clear. We see it with, obviously Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, North Korea, and more recently China. And so I think within military and policy elites in the US, you really see that kind of coupling of, is this what we want to do as a democracy, is kind of flex our mind in the same way. And even the thinking that, if anything, it's an expression of insecurity to say that we have to show how mighty we are.
Like I said, put all the politics aside on this one. Put it aside, this stuff's pretty cool. You gotta admit, yes, in the moment, in the context, yes. Let's for a moment take this completely out of context. Indulge me. This stuff's pretty cool. I mean, I am kind of kicking myself for not actually going down there at this point, because I would have kind of lost myself in this and forgot about everything and just completely nerded out, because this stuff is, to me, it hits.
When the facts on the ground show the power projection of the US military, the bases around the world, the kind of reach that it has with carriers and weapon systems and all of that. And so that was the thinking beforehand. But, with Donald Trump, obviously his strategy is very much around spectacle and imagery. And so it's not so much of a surprise to see that he embraces these kinds of visuals, and that he wants to be in proximity to it as well as an individual. What's concerning, and I should add that obviously, for many Americans, they do frankly want to celebrate the military. They want to celebrate the Army. Sure. They consider that important. There is obviously this ongoing concern. It's been growing in recent decades that the military is frequently used as a political prop. And we saw this recently with Trump's visit to a base in North Carolina, an Army base, also as part of the celebrations of the Army, in which it turned into a political rally with a lot of his
partisan.
Absolutely.
And the people were selected for their political alliance.
That's right. Even said no fat soldiers would be sitting behind him, right? So, but it was also about alliance. They were whooping.
I mean, you got to say that in general, the military is like 95% conservative. To a hard degree, not just a little bit conservative, because you're indoctrinated, right? Like, you exist in a different world where you're in the military. You may interact with civilians, but the kind of ethos that you live, the role that you have, you are a part of walking history, right? Like, you are a participant in how things are moving. At least that's how you think about it. You are a standard bearer of history and of all these accomplishments and the narrative of each division, each company, each battalion. They all have their own stories, their own traditions. And yeah, it tends to be incredibly conservative. Now, I can't speak for any other branches. I can really only speak for the Marines and to an extent the Army. But I know in general, the US military is incredibly conservative. So, and they love Donald Trump. It's just a fact. And they loved him in his first term. All right. Most of them didn't like Obama. It's just the way that it is. I don't know. And I can't speak to that going way back in the past, but I can just say in the 2010s, especially, yeah, that's pretty much how it is.
You know, calls for quelling the insurrection in Los Angeles. This is very political. And that, to me, I think for military historians and those who are observers of this, it's going to be the bigger black eye than this military parade, to be honest, those kinds of events.
Now, this same weekend, we've also seen the No Kings protests. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I think the demands there, you know, this was obviously a coordinated series of protests across the U.S., and it was timed to this parade because this parade is seen obviously as an expression of executive power. And this administration, especially the second term of Donald Trump, has really been characterized by boundary-pushing executive power. And so I think what we saw was essentially there are no explicit demands of the U.S. government, but there is one demand that this executive power be curbed, that there are it's more comparable to a kind of a single ruler system than a balance of power which the American democracy has celebrated for hundreds of years. And we have seen that Congress has been meek during this administration so far. We've seen that the courts have been tested.
In America, I feel like we've become so accustomed to the United States president not actually doing anything. And even though from what I hear, Donald Trump doesn't actually do much. He has these executive orders put in front of him and he just signs them off. It's his cabinet directly that is involved in running the country in a lot of the same ways that Joe Biden didn't actually run the country from the seat of the president either. It was his chiefs of staff. A lot of the people that surrounded him, they're the ones who actually ran the country. And I think that that's just kind of what people are used to. But having Donald Trump out there and say that, hey, we're doing this, and just kind of ignoring the fact that traditionally, most of the extreme actions that he's taken were usually approved by Congress. It wasn't just straight, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is really what's ruffled so many feathers. Because it is a one-man show. And while a lot of people may have voted for that, you know, it is essentially un-American, is really the best way to put it, because it's not just against the norm, it breaks the norm. And I guess an argument can be made that we've been going downhill for so long that a hard adjustment, a hard turn does need to be made. But at the same time, a lot of damage is being done in a very short amount of time, and the collateral damage when it comes to families being ripped apart, the economy taking massive hits, people going out of business because they can't work with foreign trade anymore, and just a complete dismantling of the trust between the populace and the government. It's a lot. So I mean, the whole thing essentially is just, hey, take a step back, get congressional approval, and that's pretty much it. But I understand on the right, they're like, well, he's not a king. And it has nothing to do with him being a king. I think there's a big uncomfortable feeling in America right now as we see a lot of political families that are maintaining, gaining, and reaching for more power than we've seen in previous histories. We've always had our Kennedys, we've always had our Bushes. We've had these political families. And we're seeing that more now, that these powerful families are consolidating power in the United States. And I think that makes us very uncomfortable. And that's why you're hearing the words like oligarchy being thrown out a lot more than you've ever heard them in your life, is because that's what's happening. You know, I mean, it's not just the Trump family. Because everywhere that Trump goes, his family is making deals. And that's one of the big issues that people on the left have, is that, when he was in the Middle East, he may not have been doing business deals directly for his family, but his family was getting permission, or gifts, and they have all these new golf courses and hotels that are going to be going up and pretty much everywhere that they went. So it's using the name. So a lot of the ways, the problem that the right had with Beau Biden using his father Joe Biden's name to get gifts and deals done, in a lot of ways is the exact same situation, if not worse, honestly, in the Trump family taking advantage and making a tremendous amount of money and wealth and consolidating power just by using Donald Trump's name and giving access to him through them. So, yeah.
As never before. Is this an autocracy? Is it a dictatorship? No, it's not. But
the opposition party, the Democrats, have also been quite unfocused.
Trying to find a strategy.
Yeah.
And, the Trump administration has made no bones of the fact that it wants to do this, that it wants to push the boundaries of executive power, that it believes the courts can't test it in certain areas. And so, this is an expression of this kind of outrage over that kind of use of executive power. And it's been timed to counter the visuals of the military parade. They said, the organizers said they wanted a split screen effect so that everyone could see the kind of outrage to these kind of policies, and then they would also see this military parade.
Very quickly, there's been a lot of news this weekend. There were also politically motivated killings in Minnesota. What's the latest on that?
Right, a state senator in Minnesota was killed. Her husband was killed as well, and then others were targeted. Political violence is not unique to this moment in American history. It's always been existent in American history, but in this kind of moment in which things are so heightened, and you have an administration that seems to want to push things, that seems to want to pour fuel into the fire of things like Los Angeles, then I think we were very concerned about what we'd see in recent weeks, and especially Saturday when you had these kind of protests being planned and the military parade. What exactly the details are, what this is connected to, we don't know. We know that it's political in nature. That's what investigators are saying. And there's fears that more of this is going to happen.
Stephen Beardsley, thank you.
Of course, more of this is going to happen. I think this is just the new normal. The Cold War, that is the culture war, has been simmering for so long that, it was just an inevitability that it was going to turn into a hot war. I think that we're just seeing kind of the opening salvo when it comes to police and sheriff's departments out there cracking down on protesters, when you're looking at targeted assassinations and things like that. I think you're going to see more and more of that. I think you're going to see a lot more sectarian violence in America. I think that that's going to become the norm, because essentially it's like this. As we are right now in America, the right holds monopoly of violence against the population. The government always holds monopoly of violence over the people. That's how the government works. They're the only ones who have that. But now it's pretty much just the right who has that. Anyone on the left who stands up seems to be getting handled, whether it's that senator at the press conference with Kristi Noem, how he got taken down, thrown out, and handcuffed. And of course, you're seeing these shootings. You're seeing the deployment of Marines and National Guard into California. And you're seeing Democratic lawmakers who are doing absolutely nothing. They're saying, well, I'm going to write a letter. The problem is this, and this is an age-old tale, and this isn't me saying anything needs to be done. Let me make that completely clear. But when you have two opposing sides, and one side is okay with using violence and fighting dirty, and the other side relies on morality and peaceful protest to overcome the other side, it is always the violent party that will win. Because we have to keep in mind that politics is a substitute for warfare. And when no agreement can be made, eventually warfare takes place. This is just, that's just how it works in civilization, and it always has. And I know that, civilization's been around for a long time. We're like, well, we're not like that back then. Listen, greed drives war. Paranoia and fear drives war. Scarcity of resources drives war. Religion drives war. These things haven't changed. And these things are still here. There's a lot more controls and safety measures in society, but the things that drive us to harm our brother, harm our neighbor, are absolutely still there. And that's not something that we should ignore or think that we're too civilized to be confronted by or affected by. But I don't know. I guess the big thing we have to say is is this who we are now? Is this where we want our country to be? And as much as we can think on those things, we can talk about the fact is that is where we are at right now in this country. And it is coming to a point where you do kind of have to pick a side. I think you do. I think the time of sitting in the middle, undecided, I think that's kind of a luxury of a safer time at this point. Like I said, I think everyone agrees that there's going to be a conflict in the near future. And as you see more forces being mobilized from red states to move into blue states, it really does kind of set the stage for something kind of out of a movie that came out just 2 years ago, Civil War. And it's kind of looking like that too, because it's not two cohesive sides against each other. Now we just have factions representing certain ideologies who adamantly dislike each other and want to see the other destroyed. And we see that, but like, where do you fall in that line? Where do I fall in that line? Yeah, I put myself out there and I've said a lot of opinions that are quite controversial. I don't agree. I'm a military guy. I love pageantry, but I don't agree. It's not the way the country is right now. I don't agree with the Marines being deployed to Los Angeles or the National Guard. That's not what they're for. And it worries me because, I do have my finger on the pulse of what's going on in the military, and their support they support this president heavily. So a lot of the people out there are saying, the military, they're not going to turn on Americans. They're going to stand down. I'm like, I don't think you've ever been a 19-year-old in the Marines in 29 Palms. I don't think you have. I don't think you understand how zealous and fanatical about trying to get some you can be. So, I don't know, crazy world out there. But if you're still here at this point, hey, like and subscribe. Welcome to the office. We're going to grow some stuff here. If you have any ideas, maybe put a sign here that says The Office. I don't know. I'm not that creative, but maybe I can just have my wife throw some Turkish stuff up there. I got a big Greek flag I can put up here because a boy can dream. But again, if you're still here at this point, like and subscribe. Think about becoming a member, join the little army that we got going on. And we appreciate you guys always and all the support that you give us here at the channel. And you know what? I'm just really thankful for the ride we're all on together here. And I hope everyone's safe out there. And I hope things get a lot better. And it's not looking like it's going to, So maybe go to the range a little bit. Maybe brush up on 2A. Maybe start going to the gym. Get a little more physically fit. I know I have to. I'm in terrible shape right now. Definitely not in fighting shape. But everyone just take care of yourselves. And we love you here. Have a good one.